Hey Gregory, hope you're doing okay. Thanks for being here. I appreciate your understanding on my delay for the reading as I just had to come back into my energy as I feel there's not much use in reading if it's not feeling like the time is happening or if I'm feeling disconnected. I feel like you would rather me, get back into the right headspace and work on things from a more energized point of view as I feel very much right now for you as your energy has definitely come in today and I'm happy to be working with it. I feel that there are big changes since the last reading, but in subtle ways. And probably since the 10th of October, since Jupiter has gone into Scorpio, you felt this even stronger. As Jupiter moving into Scorpio should give you a lot more intense understanding of like the small things, like expanding the small, subtle transformations that you're going through. As I know it was very transitional for you during the last reading, but at the same time, it's like you've already made the transformation though. I feel like since the time of the last reading, since I was last really looking into your energy very strongly, I feel that a lot of changes have happened and I feel that it's kind of a different energy, but I think that it hasn't like clicked quite yet for you. I think that there hasn't quite been a huge conscious understanding or realization that that has happened, but it has. And I feel that it will really start to make itself clear after Saturn moves on out of Sag. So by December, you should be feeling much different and much more strong, much more resolved. As you said that your health is also doing better now, which is wonderful to hear. I'm really happy to hear that. I think that you still kind of have a battle though. I think that even though it's better, like you know that there's still something that has to be done or there's something that has to still get better with that, as I think that you're over it, whatever was really causing your health to be depleted, because it felt more like an energetic drain more so than a biological or physical drain, but it's still there. And these small transformations that I feel that are coming forward for you over the next few months really hit that home. Other intellectual messages that I'm feeling for you that are intuitive before I look at the cards, I feel that you are retreating. I feel that you are walking away from something. I feel that you are leaving something behind or some way of being behind. And I feel through that you do become more solid and whole as a person. But there is a need to definitely think about what you're walking away from, to definitely think about how wholesome things are. Because I feel like there's like this connection between like walking away, between leaving something behind, and with how wholesome that is, or how wholesome what you're walking towards becomes after that. Definitely things to think about there. As I feel like spirituality is very good right now. You mentioned you did the ayahuasca thing with your and your Hindu things that you mentioned in your message as well. I think that that's good territory, but it's like a bridge. Again, it takes you to something different. It's a wonderful time as Jupiter moves into Scorpio to really make the mundane experience more spiritual. Sometimes trying really hard with spirituality, like really jumping into, even like this or ayahuasca or anything that's like, this is the spiritual territory and this is where you learn like how to become spiritual. Jupiter in Scorpio kind of does that through everything. So small things in your life can bring you a lot of spiritual healing, can bring you a lot of spiritual insight. So definitely remember that and allow yourself to have like daily experiences. Because I know ever since I've been such a spiritual person and I've started all of this, it can kind of isolate you a little bit and it can kind of lead you to be into like the hermit place, where you're kind of alone and not around a lot of people and needing a lot of time to recharge. It's good to allow yourself that recharging, but to also make sure you're getting something in the physical world with other people too. Because that's like half the battle. That's like half of where the spiritual knowledge comes from. At a certain point in time, the past can no longer be the only source of that. And I feel like that's really important for your energy to come into awareness of. I also feel like new relationships are definitely a possibility over the next few months, especially platonic. It will be good to branch out and meet new people and to confide or trust in new people, as I feel that there's something quite stale there. It feels like a lot of your relationships that are platonic, that are like outside of romance, are very like you don't trust people. Like there are trust issues, basically what I'm trying to say. And regardless of whether that comes through in family or romantic or whatever kind of relationship, definitely learning how to trust again is going to be a big battle of Jupiter and Scorpio for you. And on that note, I feel that I want to go ahead and start looking at the general energies that are coming up in the tarot for you. One thing already came out. Let's see. I'll go ahead and cut the cards for general energies just to start with. And the Star reverse came up. This was such a big player in your last reading. I remember that really clearly. The Tower reversed, King of Swords, Ace of Wands, and Two of Cups. Okay, wow. Such dramatic, intense energies. A lot to work with. a lot to work with. That's the key idea of this period of time, is it's a lot to work with. It might feel, as I feel like by the time this reading gets to you, that you're feeling overwhelmed. I think that everybody's feeling overwhelmed to some extent because of how much is possible and how much could come of what you're doing. And it's funny how that works, because sometimes when we get really discouraged with life, we're not as overwhelmed because we don't feel like we have options. But once you really start to get options, once you really start to change your circumstances and see all the possibilities and different avenues in which you can do that, it is very easy to find yourself overwhelmed. Something has fallen out or fallen through that I feel that you haven't like really mentioned specifically, and I know you're not really looking for specifics. This is more of an energetic, spiritual thing for you. But I don't know who you've fallen out with, or what life path you've fallen out with, or that you're trying to stitch together. What are you trying to stitch together that's not working out? What are you trying to force in your life? What feels forced? What doesn't feel intuitive? What feels like you're having to push so hard? And can you correlate that with like what your passion and drive for life is? Is because you're passionate or because you're driven about something the reason that you're forcing it? Because it should happen naturally. It feels like the things that you're passionate about are happening naturally. But old relationships or things that have just been built up for a long time need to be kind of allowed to fall through or disintegrate in some way. Because if they're solid from the beginning, they just won't, it won't disintegrate. But it will inevitably, regardless of how much you try to build it up. Definitely getting unemotional about these things. I feel that you've had a big emotional awakening as a person, as I feel like maybe the first half of your life up till now, so like however, whatever your age is, like split it in half, and like the first half of your life, very much emotionally unaware, or that's not really a good word to say, but I feel that a lot of your efforts towards spirituality has been an effort to come into emotional awareness and emotional strength. And I do feel that you've been successful in that. But my point being is that you definitely have to take note of where you were and think, okay, how am I being the way that I was before? And how am I not? Like really weighing those things up and putting them together. As King of Swords is what you're encouraged to channel right now, which is very unemotional, very logical, very analytical reasoning. Too much emotional emphasis right now is actually not the best thing, although it's kind of hard sometimes to find a middle ground there, because it's not that you want to repress yourself or deny your emotions, but whenever the Tower is prevalent in a reading, the problem with the emotions is that they're usually reactionary and not permanent. I feel that 2 years from now, I kind of have like a big narrative coming together, so it's hard to kind of string it all together. I feel that 2 years from now, if you made emotional decisions right now, you would regret your decisions. But you know what you need to do. This could be having to do with a relationship. You have Two of Cups here. It feels like again, this is the energy of meeting new people. This can be meeting new romantic partners, but I'm not sure how you feel about that, as I feel kind of a aversion to that. Working on the self, working with the people that are already there, but also a strong sexual transformation as well. As Ace of Wands is like coming back into your own. If you've been feeling like repressed in any kind of like tantric way, you should start to feel much more empowered soon. Okay? You should start to feel also much more artistically expressive as well. Ace of Wands is generally tantric energy, but that tends to come through as like amazing art too, and amazing creations, birthing something into the world. And it feels to me that what happens is you go, and I feel that maybe this has been happening for a few years for you now, as I know we've talked quite a lot about it, going through this falling process, this process of disintegration, this process of loss and lowering your experience. And through understanding unemotionally what it actually is, and gaining strength in your relationships, either with the people who are already there or with yourself, you gain a whole new level of like tantric creative energy, which puts you into a spotlight that you've never known before in your life. My question for you is, are you ready to be in the spotlight? Are you ready to be well known and famous for what you're doing with life? Because it's time. And Jupiter in Scorpio does weird things like that. Scorpio is not so much a spotlight sign. It's very much behind the scenes, right? It's one of those energies that is kind of an oxymoron of an energy, because Jupiter expands things and puts things into the spotlight, but Scorpio is behind the scenes and small and, isolated, like not expansive. So when you put those two energies together, it can really go either way. But you tend to get fame and recognition for small things that you've done in your life. In this way, sometimes what you're trying your hardest to do, or you're trying really consciously hard to birth, sometimes you'll do well with that. But then it's like this thing that you did on the side once or twice that you just kind of, piece together and just put it out there. That can be what blows up and makes you famous. That's sort of what happened with like my YouTube channel with tarot. It was not the focus of my life at all. It was just something that I was kind of doing as a hobby because I felt spiritually drawn to do it, and just because I thought, okay, I have some extra time on my hands, so I'm just gonna, do it. And I love tarot. I love working with people. But when I started, it was not the main aspiration of my life, and all of a sudden it just blew up and it became huge, and now it is. But I personally am kind of stuck because I have new goals that are coming in, but my schedule now, with having taken off and committing to the YouTube schedule, committing to clients, has become very full-time and very consuming of my resources, which is a wonderful blessing, but also choices have to be made here, because once you've been successful with something, it's hard to sometimes go other directions. And I feel that you're having this struggle as well, so I'm not just talking about myself for fun. I feel that you are going through something similar. It's like maybe you became successful in something that you didn't expect, and now you're like, okay, well, what does the future hold? What do I do in the future? All that I can say is prepare to become more recognized and more famous. So maybe you feel unrecognizable right now, and you're like, what do you mean by more recognized? I'm not quite sure. That seems undecided. But if there's anything within you that has a fear of being in public eye, or has a fear of, gaining following or gaining recognition, prestige, it definitely is something that needs to go away, because it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. And I feel like maybe you're thinking, okay, I've really got to pull within. I've really got to find my own strength and my own wear, and then like expand from the outside. That'll still happen. That'll still happen. But it's okay to also like make more acquaintances, like more networking. I feel like it's a really great time for networking for you. And I want to get a little bit more clarification on the direction you can go with sort of this endeavor that you have going on. This thing that puts you onto the spotlight. I feel that you know what it is already. Page of Cups, Knight of Swords reversed, Five of Pentacles. So you're afraid to take something to the next level because you don't want to invest in it extremely. You kind of like comfortability and security, and I feel that you've achieved that, and you're worried that if you take this new risk, that you're going to threaten that. Okay, so that's something that's definitely getting in the way. Afraid of taking it too quickly, and afraid of losing your authenticity and vulnerability within your project, within your goal or aspiration. Definitely something that you're working with. I want to see if these are logical fears, or if it's your ego, or something fear-based, or if there is reason to these fears. Okay, Three of Pentacles reversed. So the whole thing is that in order to take this to the next level, you have to kind of collaborate, or you have to kind of be able to take new insights. Like, I guess, so you're kind of at the point with like your business or whatever projects you're taking on relating to money, because that's what this has all of a sudden become about. You're at a point where you definitely have to expand out of yourself a lot more. And again, you're having this spiritual self journey happening right now. So it's kind of hard to think about that. And I feel like you already do. Like, you already work with a lot of other people. You already are expanded out of yourself, but it has to come to a new level, and to almost like a new personal level, because there's like a colleague type of vibe, like colleagues, people who are you in other form coming together to create what you create in a better way. Apprenticeship. This could also represent education as well. So if you've been wanting to take on some kind of new education, that can be a really wonderful thing. But one way or another, definitely working on your relationship with recognition, and relating to your relationship with being in the center of attention, because I feel like that's problematic for you. I think it's not that you dislike it. It's not that I feel a very big aversion, but there is kind of a fear. There's kind of a enjoyment that you're having of being secluded right now. And I feel like you can have that for the rest of the year if you want, but definitely by the time we get into like December and January, it's going to be time to sort of be on the scene, because you wouldn't want to just like sleep this type of energy away. Although it is rejuvenating. The stars are rejuvenating type of energy, but I'm not so much seeing it that way for you. I'm really kind of going traditional with it in the sense like you're the star, or you're like very recognized. But from the other interpretations that I tend to use for it, you know, making sure that your sleep is quality, making sure, also I feel like the diet, and I know that this came up in the last reading as well, and because I always think of the star as like a diet type of thing, and it's not that you're really being, or having that hard of a time, but really, like I think of like glucose and glycogen when I see the star. Here comes my like nutritionist aspect of my personality. It's like making sure that you're eating the types of food that empower you and give you energy, you know, rejuvenation. It's like, if you're going to have this drive for seclusion and like self-healing, make sure it's reflected in the diet and lifestyle as well. That's something that I always say to people who are going through like the spiritual thing is it's really hard to gain spiritual knowledge if you are like denying your body like nutrition. And sometimes people like try to go on diets at the same time as they try to like, you know, do the spiritual thing. And that can like really shock the body. It's not that you need to continue an unhealthy lifestyle, but you have to make sure that you're not keeping things from yourself. Like fasting, not so good with this type of energy. I don't know if you've done, and I don't know that much about ayahuasca. I'm slightly familiar with it. I don't know if that entails fasting. Does that entail fasting? I'm gonna have to like look real quick. Because that's weird that I just thought like fasting. Ayahuasca. Okay, so it's like the medicine. And I am like associating that with like some of the rituals or something. I get it so mixed up. All of these types of things, I get them terribly mixed up. So pardon my my unawareness of this type of thing, but I feel like the ayahuasca has been a very eye-opening experience for you as I just kind of look into that. I'm just getting a lot of information sort of coming to me about this experience for you. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that could have been sort of, watch out for the appetite. Watch out for the, I don't know if ayahuasca like affects the appetite. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. Like I feel like that's right. Like that's just what feels to be intuitively right to me. Make sure that you're still giving your body the nutrients that it needs, because if you deplete your like nutrient stores, you I don't know, your energy goes weird. You know, that's obvious, right? But sometimes I think like there's a big emphasis also in like Hindu as well, and a lot of major religions or any of that kind of stuff, emphasis on fasting. It's not a good energetic place, because it's not that you can't gain spiritual understanding from fasting. It's basically self-mutilation and harm, though. So you would gain the same kind of spiritual understanding from fasting as you would by getting in a relationship and being abusive or being abused. You know, it's like the same type of thing. It's like through negating yourself and denying yourself something, you somehow understand something. Just for me personally, I think that life shows you plenty of those types of things without trying, and fasting and things like that kind of create this like ecosystem of self-sabotage within your energetic field. So, but maybe some people have a better experience of it than I do. That's totally possible. And if your opinion is different, like I completely respect that. But definitely working with like being a bit malnourished could be possible. 5 of Pentacles with the star, even dehydrated. Something that's not enough in your body, and you just have such a focus of finding wholeness and like defining enough. I feel like defining enough has been like one of the goals and aspirations of your life right now. So, you know, start from the ground up, eat enough, drink enough, and you'll create a better environment for like this deeper, like spiritual, emotional things to happen. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm feeling from those energies. I want to look at some specific areas of your life really quickly. I just want to look specifically at career and see, like you mentioned, wealth and money management, and you said the bank account is good, but it's easy to drain. I want to look at some energies. What are good directions to go with that? So we have, Wheel of Fortune. We love that. Queen of Wands, wonderful. Ten of Cups. And Two of Wands, wonderful. Great, great stuff. So much easier than your spiritual journey right now. Of course, money plays a role in our spiritual journey. In fact, quite a important role. But it's going to be so much easier than some of these emotional battles you're taking on. Wheel of Fortune, Ten of Cups reversed. It's like maybe you feel like your luck has turned, but it's still there. The luck is still there, and you have enough. So it's like the money. Like, think of how you feel towards your wealth, your philosophy of money, and relate that to, like, your diet. Like, find weird little connections in these places. Like, when did you feel like in your life you had enough money? When in your life did you feel satiated, like you had enough food, like you were actually full? What were the other circumstances? What are the underlying connections? Do you feel when you deplete your bank account that you're also hungry? As I've noticed this as a big thing for myself. If I'm not eating properly, or because I'm naturally not a very hungry person when it comes to food. Like, if I don't, like, keep myself in check, like, I'll just, like, not eat for, like, a whole day until it's, like, really late at night, and then I, like, realize, oh, I haven't eaten. And those are the times when my bank account depletes. And I will notice at the same time, like, I'll be checking my bank account, like, on these days when I haven't eaten, realize, oh my gosh, wow, I have, like, no money. And then I'll notice, like, when I'm really on it and just not consciously thinking, okay, I've got to eat here and here and here. But when I'm just, like, easily allowing myself to comfortably eat, to comfortably consume, then my bank account, like, it's not like a paycheck to paycheck type of thing. It's like, it's just, I don't even have to think about it, just use my card, done, don't even have to look at the bank account because I just know it's there type of thing. It's been a weird connection that I've made, so definitely make that connection with yourself. As overeating can also affect this, or any kind of, like, indulgent nature can create the same type of effect as not eating enough. So do think about your connection with, like, consumption of food and money, because there's usually a similarity there. But anyway, it's going to get so much better. It's a wonderful time to have, like, friendly gambling or something. So you've got to be careful with that type of thing. But in small doses, it would be fun to, like, play lottery or have friendly gambling in a safe way. Wheel of Fortune is good luck and finances. Ten of Cups reversed. This can talk about family money or even inheritance. Unexpected inheritance as well, so that could be something that happens to you quite soon. Or new investments for people who are involved in business. It says if you're trying to get investments or you're trying a new business ideal, something family-oriented, something that deals with connections and ancestry is a really good way to go. How can you create a more family type of network between your investors and yourself? How can you create more emotional ties with money? You got to be careful there. That can be kind of an issue. That can be kind of murky territory, but I feel that you have a good understanding of it. You're going to be traveling a lot more. You're going to need to be around. So definitely put, like don't be, like, thinking, oh, how am I going to be able to afford my plane ticket? I don't know if that's even, like, realistic for you or not, as I feel that you can always, like, afford a plane ticket if you want it. But always be ready to travel. And also, like, that has less to do with money, too, as I feel like you're going to need to be in a lot of places quite soon, around a lot of places, and that traveling will be realistic and actually very healing and enjoyable. This is exactly what is needed during this time, especially during, like, I want to say, like, the earlier parts. So between now and, like, April of 2018 is a good time to travel, because I would say around, like, May to November, it would be really nice to have, like, a home to come back to and make roots during that time, because Jupiter in Scorpio is very much about, like, roots and can be sort of about home environments. So it feels like if you could, like, be traveling during the beginning of the Jupiter in Scorpio transit and then be able to create a home for yourself at the end of it, that would be a really wonderful spiritual experience for you. Let's see. And also, like, bold, eccentric, flamboyant women will be good. Like, fire sign women, like Sag, Leo, Aries women. If you're wondering about, like, hiring people, or you're wondering about even making friends or platonic relationships with people, then fire sign women is going to be a really good place to start, because they generate something more within you. This money and this connection and even perhaps traveling revolves around fire sign feminine energy. So do look out for that, and also culminate that within yourself as well. I always say that the court card defies gender. Culminate the feminine fire energy within yourself. So really finding that balance and culmination between, like, your thrust outward for life, like the masculine fire energy, the thrust outward for creativity, and how can you bend that in a way where you have like more of this like, okay, I'm going to take in my surroundings, I'm going to take in my experiences and allow the creativity to form within, versus needing to like go out to here, go there, go to this experience. I know that kind of contradicts this energy, but definitely forging something within you that is eccentric and that is of like fire energy. The ayahuasca does feel really good for that as well. But being able to connect with people too will be important for the beginning of this transit. And I feel like you've already caught on to sort of what the end of Jupiter and Scorpio is, which is like the pull back, the retreat, the okay, like let me go into myself and understand what's happened type of energy. And I feel like you're already sort of there. Really nice to see what humanity has to offer you over the next few months, and then really be able to powerfully do that. Because what can happen, and you may already be experiencing this, as I'm already experiencing this, is that you start out like really gung-ho with this, okay, I'm going to come into myself, I'm going to do the spiritual thing at the beginning of Jupiter and Scorpio, and then you get halfway through and you're like, well, what do I do now? Like, I've done it, and then you just sort of have to like go through the rest of it, just sort of being there, which might sound like really wonderful for you, but just for me, I'm like, I need some more outward experience and then come back to it type of thing. It's how I've sort of been feeling, but we'll see what happens. So that's sort of some energy, and of course it was about everything, but on your career and finance, definitely just be prepared to travel. You're fine. I feel like you can also save in a funner way as well, or I don't know, healing your connection to money is going to be important too. I just got that as well. Okay, so it's jumping out. And I was just kind of shuffling to see some relationship information. And this is what has come out thus far. Let's see one more. Okay, ooh, wow. Look at all this solar plexus energy. Really good. You could form a new relationship, or pre-existing relationships that you already have in your life can become much more empowered during this time, depending on what you choose. I can't remember if you're with someone or single. So if you're with someone, empower your relationship. It should get a lot better. If you're single, relationships will happen. Like, you're going to be very attractive. And again, regardless, it doesn't, and that's the other thing. Like, I always say, like, when I'm reading cards or reading people's energy, it doesn't really matter whether they're coupled or whether they're single. The energy is always the same, and it just, you use it in whichever way that you want to use it. You have everything you need to have a healthy relationship now. Don't lie. Don't lie to people. And be aware if people are lying to you, too. The Magician, I just always can never deny it. It speaks of, like, tricking people, or telling people you're a certain way that you're not, or playing yourself up in false ways. Be transparent, and you'll attract that in. And just watch for people who aren't quite being upfront. You can usually tell that quite clearly. The Sun, beautiful, and that's a really good for counteracting that potentially negative aspect of the Magician archetype, is that sunlight will be shown on people's inconsistencies. So it will be obvious. The truth will come out. And if you're worried about that yourself in any relationships that you have, that they're like lies or something, you're going to find out, I would say, by November or December for sure, if not sooner. So the truth will come forward, and you don't have to try that hard. It's like you have everything that you need to know the truth already. Four of Wands reversed, that's celebrations. Really good to go to like weddings or events that have like +1s. Good to be out with people if you're trying to like date rather than like alone and secluded. As that's sort of shadowed throughout your entire reading. Like, be careful of being overly secluded or overly alone. Just because it's not like the perfect time. Not that there's never time for that, but it's not really right now. But it's not the worst time either, so like whatever really feels right to you. Page of Pentacles, money components in relationships. Maybe not being completely happy about the relationship between like money and relationships. Could be. But I feel that it is overcome by these energies. To have these two major arcana, you're really getting some major universal energy in relationships and in that sector of your life, which is interesting to see as you're very focused inward right now. And that tends to be how life goes. You sort of attract the opposite type of thing. Anyway, I hope that I have covered things clearly for you in this reading. I hope that your energy benefited from what I have said thus far, and I have enjoyed very much working with you, and I hope to be able to continue working in the future. But yeah, message me if you have any questions or comments about your reading, and I will be sure to get back to you. Much love. Talk soon. Bye.